We are back. New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson, myself, and my cat Rex here in the background. We have your July recap, your July Weather Roundup on the Something in the Air podcast. We talk about the wildfire smoke. We talk about temperatures. We talk about just how warm it was in July. It might surprise you how warm we actually were. Talk about drought, getting out of drought, hurricane season, and both of our trips to Italy as well. So without further ado, here we go. The Something in the Air podcast with New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson, recapping the month of July. And we welcome back my weather dad, Dr. Dave Robinson, New Jersey State Climatologist. Man, I've missed you. I don't know if you missed me, but I missed you.
Same here. No, I'm lying. I'll say I missed you.
Okay, all right. That's fine. This is our, I said this on social media a couple of weeks ago. I said we never missed a podcast month in 5 years of doing this until May, when I wasn't around, and then you weren't around in June, at the end of June. Although I had my other weather parent, friend of ours, Jim Everwine, hop on in. But now it is back to the originals here as we get into August. So if you want to tell us how summer's been going, we know you were traveling across Europe, and now I think you're settled down in New Jersey for a little bit now, right?
Yeah, we can blame it on Italy because you were in Italy at the end
That's
of
true.
the beginning of June. I was in Italy at the beginning of July. Now, yeah, we were traveling. We're volcanoes. My wife and I, we're volcano geeks, especially her. And we were chasing volcanoes, first in the Azores on our own. Then we joined a group of earth science educators, who we both are, and toured from Etna to Volcano to Stromboli to Vesuvius through southwestern Italy. So wonderful, busy, hectic trip. But now, yeah, it's been back a couple weeks to good old Jersey, where
That's
we're going to
now,
be for.
Who has better pizza? I actually want to talk to you about this, Italy or New Jersey, because I have some thoughts on this.
We had pizza twice, and that was more than enough in Italy. Now, the gnocchi and some of the other pastas, unbelievable. The pizza, Jersey's got it beat.
See, I agree with, yes, I'm glad you said that, because I think, so here's my thought. In Italy, I never had a bad slice of pizza, but I have to say, like, New Jersey has better slices of pizza. Like the best Italy slice and the best New Jersey slice, New Jersey wins. But Italy's just very consistent. We'll say very consistent, but New Jersey has definitely higher highs and also lower lows.
Perhaps we found they were just trying to be too fancy, and we wanted more of a straight up,
like a bar pie
pizza.
Yeah.
So nope. But the pasta and in the Azores, the fish. Yeah, not bad. But it's good to be home.
Good to be home. Glad we're all settling in here in Jersey. We're recording this on August 2nd. It feels like more like September 22nd outside.
We're in the 40s up in Northwest Jersey, a lot of 50s. Yeah, bottle this and keep it for a couple of weeks. I wouldn't mind.
I figured you'd say that. I do appreciate this weather. I really do. But I know that summer, I need that summer because it's going to be gone one day. You're going to be cold and you're going to wish you were hot. That's the way I feel about it. But yes, very nice here. For early August. So let's start off with one of the biggest topics from June, which was the wildfire smoke. We had some more rounds of it as we went into July. We had those gray days, but at least in the southern part of the state, we didn't have any days that were really poor for air quality. Tell us what's going on with that, and are we done with the smoke?
No, because yesterday, August 1st, if you looked at satellite imagery, South Jersey was covered with smoke at high altitudes.
Correct.
Not so much central and North Jersey, but as you know, we're not done yet. And the irony is, when the cool, refreshing air came into this region from late May into now early August, it comes from Canada. So what
Right.
does it bring with it? Besides dry, cool air, it's been bringing smoke. So when we haven't had smoky skies, it's been warm, humid, sultry air coming up from the south. So it's, that's just the way it's been, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
But nothing like we saw on June 7th, particularly in central and northern New Jersey, which was just remarkable.
It looked like
Um,
Mars. We
the
didn't get to
port,
talk about it, but it looked like Mars. If you were, I think the line was about Tom's River. If you were north of Tom's River, it looked like Mars, orange during the afternoon. At our office in Linwood, it was very gray, but it was not that orange out. But that was an incredible day. I don't know. It's gonna make my top 10 weather events list. I don't know. I don't know if you've thought about
oh,
it yet. Might make yours.
it's a top 10.
It's a top 10.
It's the smoke is definitely a top 10 because of how unusual it was, really how unhealthful it was. And it's a great example of how, you know, weather doesn't know international borders. We're all connected. And what a great example of that, in a horrible way, but it's a great example of all that led to the fires in Canada, which happens to be associated with an early loss of snow cover, which is my bailiwick.
Your
So
specialty.
it even ties in to my snow research, what happened up in Canada in May, and that resulted in things drying out, the fires being ignited by thunderstorms, and then off to the races. This was clearly a remarkable situation. And we're not necessarily done yet. The Western US forest fire season really has been slow to start. In Alaska, where we sometimes can get some smoky air well aloft to us, it's been a very slow season. Picked up a little bit lately, but it's essentially at the end of the season there. So we'll have to see what comes in August and even into September. And let's hope beyond hope that nothing locally happens, although our pinelands are drying out as we speak.
Yeah, I guess we'll go into that. I was gonna say it for the end, but you're giving a good segue. We'll talk
Good
about
segue
drought.
there.
Yeah, we're clicking. We're back on all cylinders here. We'll talk about drought because they get a little hairy. We went into drought in parts of South Jersey back in July. If you remember, we had some, we'll say, is it fair to say, significant drought conditions in the fall or late summer, early fall. We got to, I believe, D3 in some parts of Cape May County. Is that correct at one point last fall?
I don't recall that.
But it
Might have
definitely
been
was two
two.
out of four.
Might have been two. I don't know if we got to three.
While you talk, I'll replay it back. But either way, came back into drought here. Now we're breaking news. You told me on the Something in the Air podcast that you might want to share what's going to change with our drought status as we go into August 3rd.
Yeah, there's been we've kept D1, which is considered moderate drought. I call that minor drought, but that's the nomenclature that's used by the National Drought Monitor. In Cape May up into, I guess, a little bit of southern Atlantic County, that had
Yeah.
shrunk from being out there in Cumberland County for a while. But what was keeping it there wasn't the short-term loss of precipitation or limited precipitation. That would keep us in D0 or abnormally dry. But it was persistent groundwater deficits. We hadn't, because you mentioned the drought last fall, we had never recharged the aquifers down there as we had elsewhere in South Jersey over the winter and April rains and so on. But now it's interesting, in the last couple of weeks, the driest parts of the state, Cape May, Cumberland, and up in Monmouth County, have gotten wet, while the very wettest part of the state over the early part of July, up in the northwest part of the state, has had a chance to dry out. And meanwhile, the pinelands is where our attention is turning now, because they were the driest part of the state in July.
Got it. Yeah, and I apologize. We did not get into D3 of 4. I apologize. We did have about 25% of the state in D2. A lot of that was in the southern part of the state, and I
Right.
believe it was far up north. With that. But either way, it was definitely dry last fall. And then you said the Pine Barrens here. I'll just go over a couple of precipitation numbers that I have. Atlantic City International Airport, 5.23 inches of rain. The average is 4.47. And then at the marina, Atlantic City Marina, 3.63. The average is a significant amount lower. It's 3.75 there. And that's just because the sea breeze front helps to dry things out, stabilize the atmosphere a little bit during the summer months. But as we say all the time, and it probably going to be the next sentence out your mouth, thunderstorms often can bring wide ranges in totals depending on where you are. Because I think we had one day over 4th of July weekend where Mullica Township picked up radar indicated 6 or 7. It was a couple inches picked up on in ground truth, but a lot of times you get a lot of rain in a small area.
It's been remarkable. Actually, today I've been preparing a report for the Office of Emergency Management as they look for federal disaster relief in Warren County, where one station up in Warren County in July had 16 and a half inches of rain.
Ooh.
And 14 of that, no, 12 of that fell in a 3-day period with a couple of inches 5 days earlier. And thus you heard of landslides up there, people displaced from their homes. It was truly a mess of a situation up there. And we've been trying to get information on that for the Office of Emergency Management's requests to the feds. But meanwhile, the driest part of the state was in the Medford area, where 2.5 inches of rain fell. Most of the state had 3 or more,
Right.
and a lot had 6 or more. But you had a range from 2.5 inches to 16.5 inches in the state. But the Atlantic City area was on the drier side, northern Atlantic County. And I might as well jump in there.
Jump into numbers.
The numbers have Atlantic County, Estelle Manor had 6.68 inches of rain.
Okay.
That's southern end of the county.
Sure.
Summers Point, very similar to the marina, had 3.25.
And they're not far either. They're close as the crow flies.
Yeah, a little drier than the marina. And then you go down to Cape May, and the good news was Middle Township had 7.27 inches, much needed rainfall there. But Ocean City, up towards Atlantic City and Summers
Point, right there in the bridge,
3.51.
Right.
So there was a dry area in the Atlantic City metro area, and then up into the Pinelands, as we see in Ocean County, where Brick, up in the northern part of the county, 6.24 inches. And that was one of the drier areas. From there up to Long Branch, they got some late month rain. But over in Berkeley Township, just west of Tom's River, out there in the Pinelands, 3.50. So, you've had those 3 counties had stations with 3.25 to 3.5 inches of rain, which is below. We should add.
Right.
Average there would be 4.5 or so for the month of July. So that was the driest area of the state. Elsewhere, 6-inch totals, 8-inch totals were pretty common.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this. We have about 30 seconds and then we'll break. Yeah, I just want to go to that Warren County number. It was Warren, right? The 16 that you said. I know it's not South Jersey, but do we know where that ranks for wettest month in any one station? Are we getting close to the record at that point for a month?
No, because we've had months where the state was up at 14 inches.
Oh, okay. All right.
But it's up there. And that's a great question. All I know is we looked at the 3-day period where they had about 12.5 inches of rain, and that had a return period somewhere between 200 and 500 years.
Okay.
200 and 500 years. Yeah. So very, very unusual. It was localized. White Township, which surrounds Belvedere up there, the county seat. That was the west central part, was the real focal point of that heavy rain. So it was somewhat localized, at least but we had 20 stations in New Jersey have over 10 inches of rain in July.
So Good. So, well, we need the rain, especially in July when the sun can pick up a lot of that moisture there.
Right.
Hopefully we'll get some more rain as we go into August as well, though doesn't look all that promising in the first half. But we're going to take a brief break. We'll be back on the other side. We got plenty to talk about: temperatures, hurricane season, and more. You're listening to the Something in the Air podcast. The Press of Atlantic City is such a unique place for weather, and it's not just because I'm working here. Let me tell you why. We're the only place in the state with a degreed meteorologist, and that means we're writing weather stories, climate stories, environmental stories you're not going to get anywhere else in New Jersey. Plus, with a meteorologist like me, you're able to get forecast videos twice a day from our state-of-the-art IBM Max graphic system, a weather column each day, of course, these podcasts, and plenty of social media postings I'm sure many of you had seen. So if you're interested in more weather, we have our free daily weather newsletter for you at pressofac.com/newsletters. It comes out every morning in your inbox around 7 a.m. And if you want it all, you can subscribe to the Press of Atlantic City at pressofac.com/subscribe. Welcome back, everybody, to the Something in the Air podcast. Join with me, New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson. The two of us are back in the saddle talking about the month of weather that was. Before we hop into temperatures, just also want to shout out our Across the Sky podcast. That is our national weather podcast I do with our weather team here at Lee Enterprises, parent company of the Press of Atlantic City. We do really well there. We have a lot of different guests. It's a fast roundtable discussion. Dr. Robinson has been on the pod as well in the past as well. We have a lot of good episodes as we go into fall. We usually like to keep them timely. So we'll be talking about football. We're talking about wave safety still as we wrap up summer. But let's get into temperatures here. July, typically our hottest month of the year. I think my gist is people would say it wasn't that hot of a July, and they're right. But at the same time, we were still above average. At least I see at Atlantic City International Airport and Atlantic City Marina.
We are immune to the heat, it seems now. I equate it, we've talked about this, to being in a pot of slowly boiling water, that we don't recognize it.
Right.
Because, start with the state, our preliminary number for the state of New Jersey is this was the 10th warmest July in 128 years of record.
And you wouldn't think it.
But that's because 9 of the 10 warmest Julys since 1895, 9 of the 10 warmest Julys have been since 2010. So we're used to it now.
Right.
We're used to it. That's one reason. And then there's another reason why it might have fooled people a little bit. This is something we've talked about on multiple occasions before.
Can I guess?
Generates a mean temperature that can fool people sometimes.
The overnight lows.
You know what it is.
Yes.
Absolutely. For instance, and I pulled this for the Marina. The Marina, it was the 14th warmest. That's out of 149 years.
Yeah.
And the high was 1.2 above normal. That ranked 37th warmest. But the low of 72.7, the average low, 4.5 above normal, and the 6th warmest low. So you got fooled if you could sleep without air conditioning. But if you had air conditioning, you didn't necessarily notice because the average daytime highs were close to normal. The 30-year normal, that's 1991 to 2020.
Yeah.
And the lows, Atlantic's, the airport was 19th warmest high and 8th warmest low. So even there, you had that disparity because it was so darn humid. Even though it didn't rain a lot in the immediate Atlantic City area, there was just a lot of humidity, and the oceans. I'm giving you a segue here.
Another segue.
The ocean temperatures were warm. That kept the moisture in the air and kept the nighttime temperatures high.
I do want to get to the ocean temps, but I want to stay on this temperature thing for a second because I got 2 thoughts with this.
Yeah.
One, we actually just did a story with Climate Central about people in our area who live without air conditioning, whether it's by choice or for financial needs. And we actually spoke with one woman, Danielle, who's pregnant, 8 months pregnant, has no air conditioning. They couldn't. She doesn't make a lot. They don't make a lot of money during the summer. They make more money when school's in session. and she's suffering. And it's we see these warming nights. They warm faster than the daytime temps. So the overnight heat. If you have air conditioning, you probably don't notice it because you're sleeping in air conditioning, except for your higher electric bill. But if you don't have air conditioning, a lot of these nights can get tough. Anything, I mean, above 70 is, I would say, you're feeling it. Above 75, it's not a dry 75 either here. It's a humid 75. And that leads me into those dew points and the humidity. At Atlantic City International Airport, I don't have the exact number, but we were in the top 10 for most humid Julys on record, and records go back to the 40s. So it was a humid month. It might not have had the 100-degree heat. We really didn't have I would say, any hot weather until the 27th and 28th of July, but it was certainly humid for most of the month.
Yeah, but that's the story for years now that I've been touting. It's not the extreme days, it's the persistence of the above normal temperatures that are so notable. Atlantic City Marina had 28 days in July where the low did not drop out of the 70s. Only 3 were 68 or 69 degrees for a low. Now inland, it was a little different. There were still 13 lows in the 70s out at the airport. So it just doesn't want to cool off at night. Now, let's face it, that's the key at the coast during the summer, and it has been for ages.
Yeah.
But it's just more exacerbated these days. So I don't want to give the impression to people who might be a little suspicious of this climatologist that, oh, this is all something new. No, traditionally, the coastal areas stay warm during summer nights. But, this is above that when, there's 6th warmest low temperature at the marina in 149 years of record.
Yeah, absolutely. And climate change is comes in all different shapes, all different forms. It's not it can be extremes, it can be persistence, like we saw in July here. Now we can segue into ocean temps here, and that's also a climate change thing too, because the Atlantic Ocean near or at record levels just as a whole. I think the sexiest thing to come out of this past month was that 101-degree temperature. Did you see that in the Everglades? Oh, are you not buying it?
No, I buy it, but I've camped with Boy Scouts on an out island in the Keys in July, and the water's normally in the 90s. So we're not talking about water that's 20 degrees warmer than normal.
That's true.
It's just a couple degrees above, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
A big deal in the tropics and subtropics, and tell the corals that. You have to realize just differences of a degree or two in the tropics are a big deal compared to up here where, the difference of 5 to 10 degrees is a big deal. But yeah, I mean, it got a lot of press. Since we met last time, to me, that's the most startling thing that's occurred, in my estimation, is the oceans in general. Temperatures off Newfoundland are 10, 15 degrees above normal with ocean temperatures. The whole North Atlantic is warm. The Sea of Okhotsk, north of Japan and off of Russia, is above normal. I mean, everywhere you look, of course, the Eastern Tropical Pacific is above normal because there's an El Nino event underway.
Yeah.
But it's not just there. And the Mediterranean that we both recently
our favorite
visited,
place.
Record high temperatures of the water temperatures. We're not talking air temperatures here. It's really disturbing in my estimation, and it's come on very quickly. This is something we're gonna have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. And has functions with the Gulf Stream, right? I mean, we won't get into it, but Gulf Stream has, people watch that a little bit too, with in terms of how strong it could be, pumping that warmer air, warmer water as far north as it can go. The tropics, and we'll get to that in a sec, plays a role, but I'll take it back closer to home here. The week of July 10th, Atlantic City, week of July 10th, Atlantic City water temps were in the mid to upper 70s persistently. Now, average water temps that time of the year, upper 60s typically. So and air isn't like water. 10 degrees above average in the water is, I mean, maybe you could throw out a number, but it's significant. It's a big amount, but comparing it to land. It got to 78.6 degrees at 3:36 p.m. on July 12th. And Steve Downey, who's the Beach Patrol chief in Atlantic City, him and I talked, and he said, that's only happened once or twice in the past 30 years where you're that warm. Now, last year, too, we were in the 80s in Atlantic City in August. But, and we were thinking about setting a record, and then we didn't set the record because the station malfunctioned, but it was extremely well above average. So it has been warmer here. Now, granted, when you're close to the coast, a couple more different fluctuations. You have upwelling that can send temperatures down in a hurry. If you get a wind from the east, it can push a lot of that warmer water in. So it is a little more, weather dependent maybe. But overall, it has been warm. Ocean waters have been warm at the Jersey Shore, and that's just part of what we're seeing across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, no question. And a little surprising in July, because generally the warmer the air temperatures, the colder the surf temperatures, because of Ekman divergence and pushing the water off coast, allowing cold water to upwell. But this in July is really interesting. I'd like to look more into that or talk more about that at some point. We had that warm, humid air, but it wasn't enough from the right direction to promote upwelling. And with that, the persistent warm ocean temperatures, surf temperatures, surf, not 30 miles off the coast, but right in the surf.
Right. And you know what it is? A lot of our winds those days were from the southeast still. So you had a lot of humidity, right? So it was humid and it was a little above average, but it still pushes out warmer water in. And as you know, but for people who are listening, a lot of times southwesterly winds, which do bring those mid upper 90s, 100, whatever, those temperatures, that upwells a lot of the water. You could have the shore, you could have a water temp of 60 degrees in Atlantic City and it's 100, 10 miles inland. It's those kind of conditions. But we had a southeasterly wind, brought some warmth, but a lot of humidity, but it also pushed down that water temp. So yeah, we'll monitor this as we go forward in time. And then going into hurricane season, we are in hurricane season, but the peak we're getting, we're ramping up. August is that big ramp up into hurricane season. I was saying this before we talked. It almost feels like the unstoppable force versus the immovable object in ways, because you have El Nino, which is usually detrimental to hurricane development. I would say a good thing. But you also have these record warm, or near record warm ocean temps, which you get a storm, it can strengthen it, quite rapidly. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts as we go into August here and into part of the core of hurricane season.
Yeah, it's a real conundrum. And we don't know which one's going to win out. My thinking broadly is that the storms, the powerhouse storms that form off the African coast and come across the Atlantic at the peak of the season, they may be somewhat weakened due to the shearing winds that coming off the Pacific that kind of don't allow the storms to percolate. But the ones that concern me the most are the ones that develop closer to home in the Caribbean, in the Gulf, further west in the Atlantic. And they may avoid the shearing, but also face the very warm ocean temperatures, and they could develop quickly and be a real problem. And then really a third part of it is up the coast here. We don't spawn storms in our neighborhood here, but the warmer ocean temperatures could help the storm's strength persist further up the coast, as it did with Sandy in late October. And that worries me for here, that a storm coming out of the south, even a run-of-the-mill storm, could stay stronger further north, and that north being the Jersey coast. So, no super red flags or whatever, but a real interesting situation to keep an eye on. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it as we get into early September.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, we will wrap it up. We'll be back with you in early September. Before we go, though, tell us anything new with the what's going on with the climate office? Any new weather stations? Kind of maintaining as we go into fall.
We've added a station in collaboration with the Forest Service at Fort Dix, up in the northern Pinelands, and we've got a few we're working on. So I can't say right now where they're going to be, and we're trying to get some agreements going on that. njweather.org to look at those weather stations, njclimate.org to look at the broader picture. I've already got a draft of the July synopsis up. It will be published in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, like I said at the top, I did miss you. I now feel fulfilled. I have my Dr. Robinson fill for the month now, and we'll look forward to talking as we get into September and the start of meteorological or climatological autumn.
Great.
All right.
Didn't miss a beat. Have a good month.
Talk to you soon, everybody. Take care.